Okay, so I wanted to get started asking about the development of the film and the story, and what was your interest in really getting the project going and telling the story and just working out the plot points for the film overall.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess the film was really inspired by my kind of passion for the erotic thrillers of the late 80s and 90s, films which really explored sexuality and sexual tension in a really visceral, plot-driven way. But I guess kind of growing up and watching these films, I was really conscious that they were very heterocentric. And as a queer filmmaker, I thought it would be a really interesting challenge to kind of explore the form of those movies through kind of like a queer lens. And so we kind of built this story from, a lot of real things that have happened in Sydney over the years, a lot of my experiences, and I guess we just wanted to immerse the audience in a strange, otherworldly version of underground Sydney.
And then going on to direct the film, what was your experience like on set and going from working on the script into directing? What was your overall approach in the directing side of the film?
Yeah, well, I think it was once we had the idea, it had a real kind of potency about it, I think. And it was it kind of felt like sort of urgent to get it made. So we went down a very independent route. We kind of knew that we didn't want to go through like a 7-year development process, which is often what happens in Australia. And we
Mhm.
also didn't really feel like we needed to ask for permission. So we set out to kind of make it under our own steam. We were very lucky that we attracted some incredibly faithful private investors who helped us along the way, and we set about casting it. And I couldn't have been happier with the enthusiasm, from the actors we cast. I mean, Tim Pocock is an actor whose work I've admired for many years. Starting way back in kind of Wolverine and his Australian TV work in Dance Academy. And what was interesting was that he had never played a queer character before, and he'd only come out as gay a few months before casting him. I'm just checking that we're still connected because you've frozen. Oh,
You hear me?
yeah. Sorry. I
Yeah.
think we.
Mhm.
That's better. Did you hear any of what I was saying before? Sorry.
Yeah, I was. Yeah, yeah, I did. Yeah. Mhm.
Oh, good, good. No, it's just that it froze. So I was like, am I talking to the anyway?
Mhm.
So picking up from there, Tim Pocock brought a lot of himself to the role. Tom Rogers was because he'd just come out and he sort of really connected with that idea of the conflict that exists, within men who have a foot in each camp. Sasha Haller came onto the project, obviously a very well-known actor and a really strong performer who interrogated the text, which was of great benefit to me. And then we built up the cast with Paul Capsis, who's an Australian legend. He's right back to the amazing film Head On. And he again has a personal connection because he sort of came up in that sort of queer Sydney world, and he really knows characters like Fat Frankie. He's lived in that world. So it became a really interesting collaboration. We shot the film over 6 weeks on location in Sydney, and we really had a lot of great support in terms of people wanting to help us get the story told.
Also, speaking of the locations throughout Sydney, what was that process like as well, and really figuring out where you wanted to actually shoot and the production design and creating just that aspect of the film as well.
Yeah, so obviously we wanted to set out to make a really distinctive world. But at the same time, being a kind of a low budget film, we very much were conscious of needing to work with what already existed. And of course, in a place like Sydney, there's an enormous amount of production value that's kind of right in front of your eyes if you only look in the right spots. So really the approach was to basically write for specific location, like, write the script around where I kind of knew we were going to shoot it. So Stonewall is a central location. It's a very famous gay bar in Sydney. and it is full of legend. There is a lot of history that has gone down there. And so we incorporated a lot of that history in the details of the production design, which also meant we didn't actually have to do all that much to turn it into a filming location. But I think that was really our methodology at every stage to try and really incorporate what was there and the truth about the city. The setting is very, very important for the film, and the tone and the immersive nature of the world. And we sort of just kind of went out for it, trying to enhance what was kind of there. I mean, I think people have probably really had sex like that in that alley behind Stonewall. I think it's fair to say that the rooftop location is a beautiful vista of Sydney as the sun's going down. So we wanted to sort of showcase the beauty of Sydney, but also give it a slightly different edge, more of that Gotham City sort of dark, dirty angle.
And while you were filming and really capturing the settings and the locations, what was your experience like also in terms of like the cinematography and figuring out how you wanted to visually shoot the movie as well?
Yeah, I guess we, again, going back to our inspiration of the kind of 90s erotic thrillers, a big inspiration was, of course, Body Heat. Ken Russell's Crimes of Passion was a really great touch point in terms of the lighting style and the bold, saturated colors. I worked with the DOP, Frank Buffone, who was quite fearless. It was a challenging schedule, and he was quite bold and was prepared to take a lot of kind of risks visually. And I guess the other thing was sort of leaning into a little bit of that kind of Brian De Palma element of the moving camera, and we actually built out a really tiny little 6K camera rig using like these incredibly small, lightweight anamorphic lenses, which meant that we could put the camera up on a really simple kind of jib boom arm, which gave us the ability for height because, again, height is another sort of visual motif within the film. You look at the height difference between Cody and Aiden. So that was sort of part of the language we were developing, I suppose.
Also, like you mentioned earlier, casting the film and working with the actors throughout the production, and what was that experience like? And really working with them and building their characters and the story. Did you have any rehearsal time with them overall to really flesh out the characters as well?
Yeah, it was really important to me from the start to build in some rehearsal time in Body Blow because you really like, even though it is a heightened style, it's a film noir, it's a thriller. There's a kind of film noir rhythm to the dialogue. So there's that. But if that doesn't come across with truthfulness um, and if it doesn't feel emotionally connected, then the audience is not going to kind of go there with it. So we had to confront backstory and we had to confront the whole like map of the world, and the cast were outstanding in terms of like I say, really supporting my vision for the film, but bringing a lot of themselves and a lot of their innate creativity and their life experiences. I mean, I mentioned that Paul sort of came of age in that kind of drag queen world and kind of had very vivid interactions with kind of real life Fat Frankies. Sasha also grew up in the same neighborhood, in the 80s and 90s, and had brought a lot of that sort of just real lived in kind of texture. And of course, Tim put a lot of himself in, and the cast were just endlessly proactive, collaborative. It was a really strong bond that we had that I think we needed in order to find the nuance that the story required.
Throughout the production, and also what was the process like of really creating like the costumes and the look for the characters as well, and really developing their arcs throughout the film as well?
Yeah, well, again, we wanted to create something very distinctive, but also that had a bit of a nod to some of these references that we were aiming for in terms of previous films. The look for Cody was, our great costume designer and production designer was, from the start, just like really keen on looking at, some beautiful local fashion designers and shaping the look from that. And then, of course, Tom Rogers himself, as the actor playing Cody, brought a lot of suggestion and ideas and kind of energy to it. And Marissa Sekharov's incredible makeup design as well is a real feature of the film. And it sort of turns Cody into almost like a sort of alien being. And it sort of underpins the sort of discordant aspect of being a stranger in a strange land, or a fish out of water. So we were really happy with how that, again, that core collaboration really worked out.
And to go along with the visuals, what was the process like also in creating the music and the score for the film?
Yeah, so we brought on an incredibly creative young composer, Andreas Dominguez, whose previous work was a film called Bird Eater. And we were very fortunate to have Andy Wright as our re-recording mixer, who's an Oscar-winning sound mixer. And again, the collaboration was really superb. Right from the start, we knew that we needed to create an organic world of saxophones, synthesizers, just really kind of taking us back into that kind of 80s, 90s space. And Andreas was terrific in terms of just interpreting that vision. Another notable point is, of course, that Tim Pocock, himself, who plays Aidan, actually composed a number of the key instrumental tracks in the score. And this came about very organically, again, as an expression of seeing the world through Aidan. And to me, it occurred that really that's kind of what I mean. This film is very much in a sort of first person perspective, and so you do want the audience to really see the world through Aidan's eyes. And what better way to literally have the score coming from the perspective that Aidan takes on the world through Tim Pocock. So he wrote this incredible music, and it was like a huge surprise at first, but it was like, hell yeah, that's amazing.
And also, during the editing process, how did you really approach really just putting the final version of the film together as well?
Yes, well, it was a relatively long-ish editing process. I was hoping to bring on an editor, but for various reasons, I ended up editing the film myself, which, of course, always has got, pros and cons. And it was a 125-page script as well. And I think we sort of felt that, a fast game is a good game. In this day and age, people don't want to sit in the theater forever. So there was a challenge in terms of bringing the duration of the film down. But I think what that really gave us was the freedom to just run the story fast. And I feel like it is the kind of film where you're not waiting for something to happen. There is going to be a sort of breakneck momentum to it. So I think that kind of turned out well. And yeah, hopefully I mean, look, they say that films are never finished, they're abandoned. You know what I mean? So, you never know if the version that's on the screen is the best possible edit, but you know, you lock it off at a certain point.
And also, like you mentioned earlier, working with the other producers on the film, and what was your collaboration like with the rest of the team in terms of getting the film made and working and collaborating together?
Yeah, so my company, JJ Splice Films, collaborated with Breathless Films, and we had made a film together previously, which was called Lonesome, which I produced and was the cinematographer on, and it was directed by Craig Borum. So we had a familiarity and a kind of shared language with one another, which was great. And really, Breathless Films has got this fabulous. I mean, obviously they're named after the Jean-Luc Godard film, so they're very much about it's like getting out and doing gritty stuff, and regardless of budget. So they had the right mentality for it. And then we had Timothy May, who was on my team at JJ Splice, who was a tremendous support. But look, it's always really hard to get a film made. I think in this current climate, we're super fortunate, in Australia to have a fabulous producers offset, which really helps filmmakers package films together and receive government funding, which is not at all like assessed. There's no subjective evaluation of our film. We can just make a film, and we're lucky enough to get an offset back from the government, and that's the kind of lifeline that I think independent filmmakers these days really rely upon to get productions off the ground. So we feel fortunate for that.
And with the film having its year at Fantastic Fest, what has that experience been like for you and meant to you to be able to share the movie with audiences here in America and hear their reactions as well?
Yeah, well, I mean, the world premiere of Body Blow is this evening at 8:30 p.m. at the Alamo Drafthouse, of course, and I'm just absolutely cannot wait to see what the, the reaction is. It's always extremely daunting when you get so into your little bubble as a filmmaker, and then you fly halfway around the world into a different culture, and you get really fresh perspectives on it. So far, there's been tremendous enthusiasm for the film. But I certainly cannot preempt what will happen this evening.
Okay, I think that was mainly it, but thank you again for taking the time to speak with me. I appreciate it.
It's a pleasure. It's super nice to meet you.
Me too. Thank you again. I appreciate it.